This occurred when I was 12 years old, which is a good age to be conscious of my environment and have a sense of danger, but also still around that age that attracts a certain selection of creeps. We live in a decently busy neighborhood, however we're on a dead-end block near a forest preserve, and across the street from us is a sump, and if you were to go through the forest preserve you would find yourself in a small community park. There was this one Saturday night that a mini carnival was being held in the park, and since I wasn't doing anything with friends, my mom suggested that I go check out the carnival. She isn't the kind of mom who tells her kids not to go out past dark. She always let me do my own thing, so I did end up going. I crossed through the forest with a flashlight and eventually passed the fence that led to the park and saw lit up carnival rides everywhere, a Ferris wheel, a mini roller coaster, some of those big spinning rides, and of course concession stands and carnival game booths. It was late enough where it wasn't very crowded. There was also a big circus tent with the red and white stripes where I saw some people entering. I poked my head inside where I saw 4 rows of people in the audience, and on this mini stage were 3 clowns performing tricks. One was on a tricycle, one was juggling, and the other was just dancing around. Then the dancing one noticed me poking my head inside the tent, and he skipped over closer to me and started waving his index finger signaling for me to come closer or to come onto the stage. I didn't really know. All I knew is I didn't want to do either, and so I walked away. I ran into a friend at one of the carnival games and I hung out with him for about half an hour. Pretty soon the carnival was closing down and everybody was starting to leave. I said goodbye to my friends and made my way towards the woods again. I was near the fence when I heard it came from behind me. It was one of the clowns, the clown that was waving me over earlier. He asked me if I wanted to check out the backstage area of the circus tent and some of the cool things the guests cannot see. I said no very quickly and walked into the forest, looking back every few seconds to make sure I wasn't being followed and I wasn't. The clown just stood there watching me with the painted-on smile on his face, making the situation even more disturbing. When I was out of view I began to run for a bit before I was confident he wouldn't be able to find me. I was afraid that this might ruin the half-mile walk through the woods, which I loved to be allowed to do whenever I wanted, so when I heard it again, I was probably 3/4 of the way there when I felt sick. I turned and saw the same clown emerge from the shadows into the light of my flashlight, and when he got close enough, I threw the flashlight at him and fled toward my house. I heard him follow me until the road was visible, and then I heard him turn around. When I arrived home, I was breathing like I had just finished a marathon, and my mom was obviously worried. I lied and claimed that I jogged the entire way back, and it never came up again. Music. Up until the age of 14 I always had a fear of clowns ever since I was first greeted with one at the age of 5 at a county fair on a cold Tuesday night in November during break. My parents were on vacation and my sister and brother were out for the night. My friend, who I'll refer to as B, wanted to come over so that we could walk to the fair a couple blocks away, so he did. We walked to the fair, which happened to be in a big empty parking lot. We walked around for a little while and played some of the carnival games. Then we ran into a clown. He didn't speak, he just smiled, bopped around and made silly hand motions. He resembled more of a mime than a clown, and he seemed to inch his way closer to us every few seconds. Me and B laughed. B patted him on the shoulder and we walked away. That was weird, I told B. That was more creepy than weird, said B. We were walking back to my house now on the sidewalks of the quiet Tuesday night neighborhood roads, and that's when we heard something from behind us. It was a pair of footsteps. We turned but didn't see anyone. This continued for another few minutes. B said he was freaked out and was going to go home, but I convinced him to stay with me and hang out at my place, honestly because I was scared. Now we were sure we were being followed. We made it to the front of my house. I dug through my pocket, took out my keychain and started looking for the right key out of the 3 in the dark. That's when B nudged me to turn around. There was a clown hiding in the next door neighbor's bushes, and he was staring at us. When he noticed that we had spotted him, he emerged from the bushes and started walking over to us. I began to panic, trying each of the 3 keys until the door finally opened. We entered and slammed the door behind us. I immediately called my parents, who instructed us to arm ourselves and hide upstairs. We went up to my little brother's room and looked out the window, and the clown was standing in our driveway, staring up at the window we were standing at as if he were waiting for us. I closed the blinds, and we both ducked down, breathing heavily and panicking, and within 10 minutes he was gone. Music. If you've seen the news recently, there have been numerous reports of clowns luring kids into the forest. I was among the first to experience this, and it was completely terrifying. I want to remain anonymous for the time being, just in case the clown finds out who I am. Anyway, here's what happened. I'm 14 years old, and I live in a small town in South Carolina, with a population of about 130. Summer was just about over and I had a summer job working at the local lumber yard. It was a great place to work. I helped customers load lumber into their vehicles, a pretty mindless job, plus I was able to stay physically fit because of it. The best part is that my house is exactly 1 mile away. Walking to and from work is a daily occurrence. I spent a long day hauling and moving lumber and my workday was pretty much complete. It was about 9:30 p.m. And when I started to walk home, the moon was just starting to light up the road and the sun had completely set below the hills. There are no other houses between the lumberyard and my house. Our town is very rural. The road home has hills that peak high enough that you're unable to see what's on the other side until you crest it. The road is skinny with no shoulder, but it was freshly paved. The trees stack one by one behind each other in a row and vegetation is thick with a few game trails coming out to the road. Crickets and frogs sound like an orchestra. The trip home generally takes 30 minutes, and I've done it so many times that I use music to pass the time. I turned on some tracks, put in my earbuds, and headed home. I was halfway there when I heard what sounded like a high-pitched chuckle, and I asked myself, what the hell was that? I said aloud, pulled out my earbuds, and stopped. I thought maybe it was a part of the song, but something about it didn't fit into the song. I stood there looking for the same sound again, but the frog's croaking was so loud that not even a scream could be heard. It was a beautiful day, and I usually look down at my feet and kick any rocks I see, and it was strangely satisfying to have them skip across the fresh pavement. I kicked a rock, and it skipped across the pavement and landed next to a strange object lying in the dirt on the side of the road. It looked like a bright red ball. I picked it up, applied a little pressure, and it squeaking right away, and I knew it was a clown nose. What the hell is this doing out here? I thought. I kept it and carried it to work to show the other staff members. I even put it on and gave it some honks. It got a few laughs. The day went on as usual, and around 9:30 p.m. I clocked out and began my long walk home. I forgot my earbuds at home, so I was unable to listen to my usual music. While on my way home I was able to make out a faint image of a figure about 150 yards away of what looked like a deer standing in the middle of the road. It was hard to make out as the fog hovered over the ground and the moonlight backlit the animal. As I got within 100 yards it must have gotten spooked. I could see a rough outline scamper back into the forest. Little did I know this was not a deer but something more sadistic. I passed the spot in which the deer had taken off back into the woods. As I walked by I heard footsteps about 20 yards behind me. I thought this was strange as I have never seen a deer come back onto the road. Once it was scared off before I could look back I heard, "Hey there." I turned to see a clown standing in the middle of the road with his hands behind his back. He was wearing a loose-fitting shirt and pants that were obviously meant to be a clown costume, but they were so filthy that the colors faded into stains. His makeup ran down his face, and his eyes were black. He said, "You have something of mine, I need it back," tilting his head to the side. After he responded, "I don't have anything of yours," I said, beginning to walk backwards because my house was still a quarter of a mile away. At this point, the situation escalated from strange to terrifying, and he said, "Well then, if you don't have my nose I'm going to need yours." He took something from behind his back, and I won't lie, it looked like a machete. I turned around and ran down the middle of the road with all my strength. I heard his bare feet running, and I didn't turn around because it might slow me down. I was in excellent shape, but I could still hear his footsteps getting louder, which would make my lungs burn even more. I started to climb the hill at this point, and I could hear him almost touching me from behind. Suddenly, a truck crests the hill with its headlights shining on me. I frantically waved my arms, and he stopped. I glanced over my shoulder, but there was no clown there. I told the man in the truck what had happened, and he phoned the police. I will never walk that way again. I don't know how the clown got there or why he waited for me. For kilometers, there are only my house and no other residences, and I have never seen any cars parked there. This was the realization of my worst nightmare, and I now know that more people are experiencing this. Clowns lurking and hiding in the woods, is this a cult, a gang of frightful clowns who want to frighten people? I don't know, but I do know that I'll never be able to see clowns or walk in the dark the same way again.